I'm Aimee Nezhukumatathil, and I'm going to read a poem called Mint Snowball by Naomi Shihab Nye. My great-grandfather on my mother's side ran his drugstore in a small town in central Illinois. He sold pills and rubbing alcohol from behind the big cash register and creamy ice cream from the soda fountain. My mother remembers the counter's long, polished sweep, its shining face. She twirled on the stools, dreamy fans, wide summer afternoons, clink of nickels in anybody's hand. He sold milkshakes, cherry cokes, old-fashioned sandwiches. What did an old-fashioned sandwich look like? Dark wooden shelves, silver spigots on chocolate dispensers. My great-grandfather had one specialty, a mint snowball. Some people drove all the way in from Decatur just to taste it. First, he stirred fresh mint leaves with sugar and secret ingredients in a small pot on the stove for a very long time. He concocted a flamboyant elixir of mint. Its scent clung to his fingers even after he washed his hands. Then he shaved ice into tiny particles and served it mounded in a glass dish, permeated with mint syrup, scoops of rich vanilla ice cream to each side. My mother took a bite of minty ice cream and ice, all mixed together. The mint snowball tasted like winter. She closed her eyes to see the Swiss village my great-grandfather's parents came from, snow frosting the roofs, glistening, dangling spokes of ice. Before my great-grandfather died, he sold the recipe for the mint syrup to someone in town for $100. This hurt my grandfather's feelings. My grandfather thought he should have inherited it to carry on the tradition. As far as the family knew, the person who bought the recipe never even used it, at least not in public. My mother had watched my grandfather make the syrup so often she thought she could replicate it. But what did he have in those little unmarked bottles? She experimented. Once she came close. She wrote down what she did, but now she's lost the paper. Perhaps the clue to my whole entire personality connects to the lost mint snowball. I have always felt out of step with my environment, disjointed in the modern world. The crisp flush of cities makes me weep. Strip centers, poodle grooming, and takeout Thai. I am angry over lost department stores, wistful for something I have never even tasted or seen. Although I know how to do everything one needs to know, change airplanes, find my exit off the interstate, charge gas, send a fax, there is something missing. Perhaps the stoop of my great-grandfather over the pan, the slow, patient swish of his spoon. The spin of my mother on the high stool with her whole life in front of her, something fine and fragrant still to happen. When I breathe a handful of mint, even pathetic little springs from my sun-baked Texas earth, I close my eyes. Little chips of ice on the tongue, their cool slide down. Can we follow the long river of the word refreshment back to its spring? Is there another land for me? Can I find any solace in the color green? I love that poem by Naomi. That was literally the first contemporary poem I'd ever encountered when I was a hapless chemistry major. I didn't even know that that was kind of a poem. And it just took the top of my head off, like Emily Dickinson says. All that sensory detail, and I could taste that mint in my mouth and the shaved ice. I wanted to taste that mint snowball, and I wanted to always be lost in that world. So I think it was maybe like 2 months later, I switched my major from chemistry to English and took my first poetry writing class. And I've been completely changed ever since. And that's the poem that brought me to poetry writing. I'm going to read a poem of my own from my book, Lucky Fish, and it's called Eclipse. She's been warned not to sleep with moonlight on her face, or she will be taken from her house. She wears eelskin to protect herself. She tilts her face to the night sky when no one is looking. During the eclipse, eels bubble in their dark and secret caves. Toads frenzy in pastures just outside of town, surrounding the dumb cows in a wet mess of croak and sizzle. Years later, she would touch the hand of a green-eyed man by the weird light. Because of him, she plants a moon garden, freesia, snowdrops, fathergia, bugbane. She is a runner bean, stretching best and brilliant in this light. Their child is now moon-faced. She is crazy about them. She is a lunatic. She is taken. She is a hymn book flipped open. The question is there one poem you continue to write over and over? And if so, what is it about? Yeah, I think as much as I don't want to admit it, I think the poem I write over and over again really can kind of be traced. Almost all of my poems, I think, can be considered love poems. I think in some ways, especially the poems I'm writing now, certainly my book, Lucky Fish, is kind of, I look at it as kind of love poems to family, to beauty in unexpected places, and it's kind of writing that poem of being grateful to be alive on this planet. And it's almost like a record. I want my sons to kind of look at it later and see this record of how much their mother was in love with this planet, its inhabitants, and themselves. And to just see how much their mother loved, basically. Pop.